you are somebody who deep down believes somewhere in her or him that you were created for greatness. You believe that to be true, that you weren't created to feel pain of a migraine for the existence of your time here on this planet. You know that's not what your calling is here on this earth, even though you're experiencing it. Hi, my name is Kai. I'm an integrative physical therapist, a neurosensory expert, and a trauma sensitive coach. And today we're going into part 2 of a 3-part series on how to abort and stop, dissolve a migraine in 30 seconds or less without any medications or interventions. Part 1, we learned a very important component is the breath. Today, we're going to learn about what authority has to do with busting a migraine. And number 3, the next video, which I hope you click onto, is going to be about declaration and how each of these have to be present and have to be mastered in order to bust a migraine in 30 minutes or less. So make sure you look back at the first video, and after this one, make sure you look at the third video, okay? So in the first video, I talked about this acronym, and I divided it like this into 2 sections. This was sensation and emotions. Go back to the first video because this is focusing primarily on the body, but these 2 are focusing on the mind. Migraine being a mind-body phenomenon. It involves both the mind and the body. Yeah. So now let's go to A. Let's go to A and T, okay? So the A stands for attitude, and the T stands for tolerance. Woo! There's the timeline. I talked about this in the first video. 0 to 3 days before you actually get attacked with a migraine, something has transpired in the last 0 to 72 hours, and it is self-abandonment that's taken place, where you've abandoned from yourself, you disconnected from yourself, you have neglected yourself, you have dissociated as a survival response. So the attitude involves self-abandonment always. And this precipitates the sympathetic overdrive or the sympathetic dominance that's taken over your system. And it's been developing somewhere between the last 0 to 72 hours. Oftentimes, a defense mechanism, a learned survival response where we turn inward and we go against ourselves to deal with whatever it is we're going through, or whatever it is we're experiencing, whatever it is we're struggling with. We turn inward and we blame ourselves. Let's talk about stress. The 3 different ways we can experience anxiety or emotional distress. Loss of control. We have that feeling. Number 2, unpredictability. And number 3, loss of, or we could call this uncertainty too, right? And the third way is conflict. So this is the biggest way migraineurs tend to use. We avoid conflict at all costs. Migraineurs will avoid conflict at all costs. because they were programmed and conditioned that way. It was unsafe because they had emotionally immature people they were growing up with, most likely, and conflict was not used as a method of communication and to eventually draw closer to the person. So conflict is really a source of distress and a source of anxiety. And one way in which they avoid conflict is they turn inward against themselves and they blame themselves and they make themselves responsible for other people's emotions. Unpredictability, uncertainty, we know that can be stressful, or loss of control of a situation of any kind can bring on stress. And when you don't have the proper emotional regulation techniques, that when you never learned that and it's not your fault, these things create a heightened hypervigilance, urgency that turns into the sympathetic dominance, where you feel this I have to, I need to, I ought to, I should. They come first before what my needs are. I'm responsible for the way everybody around me feels. My needs don't really matter. My feelings don't really matter. There starts the self abandonment. Going back to attitudes, understand that these attitudes that we have towards ourselves are highly influenced by our beliefs. Our beliefs highly influence our behaviors. So these three categories are: I am helpless or incapable. Another one is I am unworthy, not having appropriate value for yourself. And number three, I'm unlovable. These three false beliefs create an attitude and a posturing of your body. Thomas Hanna and clinical somatics, he did a really good job of explaining how our nervous system postures itself as a survival mechanism when we're dealing with these false beliefs, when we're dealing with self abandonment, and when we're dealing with this kind of these kind of things that create stress, loss of control, unpredictability, uncertainty, or conflict. This whole video is on posture of authority. This is necessary in order to bust a migraine. If you are dealing with false beliefs, if you're using defense mechanisms turning inward against yourself, if you're dealing with self abandonment, your posture authority is going to go opposite. We're going to call one the red light posture, and we're going to call one the green light posture. Okay? These are the opposite of posture of authority. The red light posture, it's a defense mechanism. You're trying to protect yourself and keep yourself safe. Let's just look at your spine from the top of your head to the tailbone. You're trying to protect yourself. And I like to refer to it as the hoodie posture. So you know when people put a hoodie on, they turn into this. And it's not only rounded shoulders, it's a forward head, it's a sunken chest, and it's a posterior pelvic tilt. So you know when you see older men and they have their belt goes right below their rib cage, like up here, it's because they're really postured. So they have this their pelvis turns posterior and everything falls like that. So this is an internal winding of your nervous system. And you don't necessarily see this to the naked eye with someone experiencing migraine. Over time, yes, and you'll see they have issues with their postural awareness, especially at the neck because of this forward head posture and rounded shoulders. Over time, you'll get musculoskeletal issues. But we're talking a nervous system driver. So this red posturing of trying, please don't hurt me. It's like, please don't hurt me. You're shielding yourself. If I go into this posture, I'm not exposed. I'm not as vulnerable. I'm not as easily accessible to get hurt. So we're going to classify which one you tend to go into. Either red, I'm trying to protect myself, or it's green. I like to refer to this as the check please. Like, when somebody's at a restaurant and they're trying to get the waiter's attention, and they'll when the waiter might look over, they'll raise their hand and be like, check please, and they do the exact opposite, extension, right? So the other one had a lot of flexion components. This one is a whole lot of extension. So you'll see this straining and striving and trying and efforting and wanting to be seen. If you looked at the first video, we talked about doing and having and being. This is a lot of doing energy, trying to be a human doer instead of a human being, a human doing. We try to be human doing. So these are your overachievers. These are your perfectionists. Red, the protectors, they tend to be the ones who fawn and comply, the people pleasers, the ones who don't think they have a voice. They really suppress their needs and their wants. So this is like the brakes, and this is like pressing on the gas. Both are exhausting to the nervous system. Both are depleting to the nervous system, because it's that 0 to 72 hours before you came down with your migraine, you became depleted. Your body could not sustain what you were putting it through, whether it's suppressing your needs, wants, or emotions, whether it's trying really hard, efforting. We have a lot of extension, the opposite. So we have anterior pelvic tilt. So now everything's tipped forward and you're trying really hard. Be seen, be perfect. It's very exhausting. Classify which one you tend to go into, and maybe you're a combination of both. Posture of authority is having a level of assertiveness that comes from within. So that famous line, as within, so without. If you are insecure on the inside for whatever reason, you're not going to be able to display authenticity, true authenticity. And both of these are displaying insecurity, lack of confidence, lack of assertiveness that comes from just a state of being who you are and being okay with it, and not being led or directed or controlled by your environment and the demands, the obligations that people and situations put onto you. You are separate from them. That is true posture of authority. So we talked about number one, the type of breath. Go to that video, watch about the physiological side, how to do it. During that 30-minute window, you must put on a posture of authority. So when I speak about put on, especially in the beginning of this kind of work, if it's new to you and your self-esteem might be low, your self-worth might be low, your ability to truly have self-compassion for yourself might be limited, your ability to welcome and sit with all emotions and to let them come and pass and go through you without feeling like it's a danger or a threat. Being able to put your needs and prioritize them no matter what people might demand around you. Not looking at your duty, role, or responsibility in life as your driver, but having your intuition, having your true, authentic self guide and lead all your decisions and choices in your life and actions and behaviors. So this posture of authority is really a mindset on how you're looking at yourself and the world around you. First, you have to look at what your values are, making sure that the values that you have come from inside of you, and it's not a value that someone else tried to place on you as a burden. What do I mean by that? This is a whole deep dive in my program about what your values are, and are your values from your core, who you are. God made you a certain way and gave you certain characteristics, certain personality traits. But when we put on personas, so persona is the opposite of a personality trait. They're different. And a lot of you are going to think that your personality is to be this overachiever, this perfectionist. A lot of you think that your personality trait is, oh, I'm just really shy and reserved, and that's just who I am. I just don't know how to open my mouth and speak my truth. No, those are personas that you develop to survive dysfunctional, unhealthy environments that didn't give you what you needed emotionally as far as support and a safe place in which to develop and grow and understand yourself and your emotions. When you're functioning with either the brakes on or the foot on pedal to the metal, these are masks that you have had to put on to survive what you have lived in, your environment. And these masks are personas. A posture of authority is literally taking off the mask and putting on your true value. And if you haven't done work with values, it's a huge deep dive, but it's literally putting on piece of clothing out of the dryer. So you know when you take something out of the dryer, it's really warm and toasty, and you put it on and it just like feels good and it feels like this is what you want. This is who I am. Now I can go about my day feeling comfortable. That's what stepping into your true values are. Not values that society, culture, or family, because of intergenerational traumas and hurts, has put on you. Those can be all across the board, and it goes a little bit outside of the depth of this video. I'm sure in upcoming videos I'm going to be talking about values and what your values are, because if you're not standing and wearing your values, you won't be able to stand in a posture of authority. Your subconscious mind is really smart, and it actually always follows the avenue of least resistance. What it has always done, what it has always believed, it's just going to go that way unless you give it a different feeling in which to see as safe and protected. That's part of the rewiring that we do to enable you to have and stand in your posture of authority. You are who God made you to be. You are not who the people around you told you you were as you were growing and developing your nervous system. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are somebody who deep down believes somewhere in her or him that you were created for greatness, that you were created to be something in this life, that you have a meaning and a purpose here on this planet. And even though you might not have it fully figured out, you believe that to be true, that you weren't created to feel pain of a migraine. You know that's not what your calling is here on this earth, even though you're experiencing it. This pain that you're experiencing is not yours. Being able to stand and realize that a lot has come against you in order to create this depletion to have a migraine attack. It's not like we're pointing the finger and blaming people. It's that we're looking at the way that you've been conditioned and programmed in which to respond to people's tone of voice, to people's body language, to conflict, the way you're relating to them, to past emotional flashbacks, and what that message has sent to your nervous system, because it registers as this is danger, this is threat. I got to protect her by giving her a migraine. what migraine is doing, it's trying to stop the depletion. And that's why you're so fatigued and all your sensory system mechanisms have gone haywire. That's why there's nausea involved. That's why there's tingling and numbness. That's why there's brain fog involved. That's why there's insomnia. That's why there's all these symptoms along with the pain involved in migraine. Your body's trying to recover and repair itself and get some semblance of balance. And it's using migraine to do that. But what we're doing when we come against it with a posture of authority and breath and the declaration is we are putting your nervous system in a safe state. When you speak the declaration that I'm going to tell you in the final video, you have to have this posture of authority. You have to feel like migraine does not have the end all say all for your life. You have to believe and feel that you have agency over whatever is coming against your brain. You have to be able to believe that you can speak to your brain and things will change. You have to understand that the way in which you are relating to yourself can bring about neurotransmitters that bring on migraine. And the way that you think about yourself can also bring about neurotransmitters that go against migraine and dissolve it. From experience from myself and people in the program, this is possible. And, I'm not the first to do this. There have been a truckload of amazing people that have spoke about this in the past. One being Dr. John Sarno, one being Dr. Howard Schubiner, one being Dr. Gabor Mate. And the list goes on and on and on these pioneers that have trailblazed the way in how to overcome this neuroplastic pain. And I specialize in migraines because it's been my own personal journey. And I've really broken it down into what one can feel, be, and do to transform it. But like I said in the first video, it's 80% who you are, and then it's 20% what you do or what you have. Posture of authority is being able to, even with the sensations that come when one is on just begun the beginning of a migraine attack, to be able to stand with a posture of authority is a huge challenge in the beginning because doubt in ourselves has been happening for 0 to 72 hours before this migraine. The harsh inner critic has been working overtime. This blaming yourself for everything going wrong in everybody's life around you and looking negatively upon your abilities, your capabilities is a spiral that's been taking place for 0 to 3 days. So when this migraine finally attacks, as your body's last ditch effort to try to rebalance and recover from this, I call it like a negativity spiral, it takes a lot within. And you have to have that God given knowing that you will not be a victim to migraine for the rest of your life. You have to come to that point where you're just like, nope, I'm not doing it. And yes, I have the authority to speak to my brain. And yes, when I can maintain this mindset for the 30 minutes that I'm doing my physiological sigh, this will shift the neurotransmitters that are being expressed, especially CGRP in the brain. Same place in your brain that creates CGRP, which is the neuropeptide that is expressed when migraine shoots and begins to attack, is the same place in your brain, your cerebellum, where you process emotions, where you can look at social interactions and make sense of it and relate to it a certain way. Really, you have to look at whether you've been doing the red posture, the red light posture, or the green light posture. You have to notice that and then go, wow, look at how in that situation with that conflict, look at how I cowered and I didn't say anything and I kept myself small. Recognizing what triggered it Being compassionate for yourself is the biggest thing that allows this posture of authority. And looking at yourself as being right, having the right to exist and speak your truth and be who you are, and not letting anybody or anything tell you or make you feel differently. It's an awesome thing. It's really stepping into who you are and being comfortable in your own skin. Yeah. This is the hardest work you will ever do, but it is the most rewarding work. And you're not only going to overcome migraine, you're going to overcome past emotional wounds and traumas in the process and really live your best life. Because migraine has stolen so much of your life, but it's rooted in these personas blocking our true personality. It's rooted in suppression. Yeah. Posture of authority is being able to feel this oncoming of a migraine, but being able to stand in your posture, not the red, not the green, and in your being grounded in who you are and being able to say, even though I am feeling the beginning of this migraine, I'm going to stand up against it and I'm going to refuse and I'm going to talk to my brain and be like, no, not today. I'm not having a migraine today. I'm not falling into this. Beginning with that posture, then going into the breathing, the physiological side for a whole 30 minutes until it dissolves. But you have to maintain a posture of authority. You can't succumb to this victim mentality. You have to maintain that I am fearfully, wonderfully made by my creator, and no weapon formed against me shall prosper, even this weapon of a migraine attacking me right now. Because that's what it feels like. You're just, someone's coming at you with an AK-47 and you just feel like your body just like shutting down. You have to be able to stand up against that, even though, and say, no, I do not accept this. I refuse this 110%. And I will continue with this posture of authority until it dissolves and maintain that for 30 minutes straight. So that means not falling into those false beliefs. I am helpless. I am incapable, I am unworthy, or I'm unlovable. All of those things you have to, in that 30 minutes, stand against it. And just say to your brain, you're talking to your brain is what you're doing, because neuroplastic pain comes from your brain. Look at the onset of a migraine attack as like an intruder knocking, being like, I'm here, I'm going to storm my way in. But unless you do something about it, and this is how you start that. Migraine doesn't dominate you. You dominate you. You have the authority. And a lot of believers who believe in God, they don't understand or realize they have the authority. In the Bible, it's as He is, so are we in Christ, and that you have been created and made in God's image, and He's given you the authority to speak out against what is not for you. Whatever is against you, you have the authority to speak out against it. Jesus said, if you're not for me, you're against me. So this migraine coming at you, it's not for you, it's against you. And you have the authority to speak out against that. Rebuke and renounce it and speak with authority within 30 minutes. So you must do it right at the onset and begin the reconnection back to yourself. Because remember, it was self-abandonment that started this depletion before this attack. So you have to return to yourself. Because when you do this regularly over time, you rewire, and then migraine doesn't even come anymore. You don't even have those wirings for your nervous system to travel anymore. I would always start with the posture of authority to feel it. You can't think it. Nothing happens just by thinking. You have to feel it. That's the big thing about this rewiring the nervous system and how you can change the subconscious mind. Neuroplastic pain comes from your brain, and it's a subconscious mind thing, migraine pain. With repetition over and over, and different emotion, and repeating that over and over and over again, you create deep grooves in new synapses that wire your brain differently. This is a new way of thinking about migraines, and most people are like, huh? At the end of the day, can you be curious about a whole new way of looking at how to heal migraine and knowing that it's neuroplastic pain and realizing that it can be rewired? So please look at part 3, because I'm going to go back to that story about this young girl who had dealt with her emotions in a certain way and used these defenses. I'm going to go into that a little more detail, and how using the third part, which is the declaration, and how that fits into the third piece of the puzzle, and how to successfully dissolve a migraine attack in 30 minutes or less. Thank you so much for joining me. I can't wait to see you in the next video. I'll talk to you soon. Love you.